Great. So, welcome everyone to today's session. I'm joined by Gilles Ferrandez from Anpost, and we're going to be talking about a range of subjects which hopefully you'll find interesting. So, Gilles, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, David.
Great. So, should we do a quick start and just tell us a little bit about yourself and a bit about Anpost for people that don't know the business so well?
Sure, David. Look, I'm the sales director for Anpost Commerce, which is the B2B brand that we have in Anpost. So, look, we are the Irish Postal Service on the Republic of Ireland. So, been participating to TDC many years over. Love the conference. So delighted to be here. In terms of Anpost itself, look. Our like any other post in Europe, we're going through a transformation where we were traditionally a mail carrying company delivering a few parcels to becoming a parcel carrier delivering less and less mail. So that's where we are. So the business is transforming, and hopefully I'll take you through some of the experience we had lately and our plans for 2021 and beyond. So.
Yeah, great. Oh, thanks for joining us. So let's start by just talking a little bit about the last 12 months, and everyone's had their worlds turned upside down. I'm joining you from my bedroom today. So how has the last 12 months or so been for you on Anpost, and how are you seeing consumer expectations and preferences shifting as a result of how things have gone?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, it's we're now in our third lockdown since the beginning of the pandemic, which was we were all kind of sent home to work from home, I guess, in March last year. And like any other market, we have seen an acceleration of the adoption of online shopping, and it's both new shoppers who would have never shopped online before the beginning of the pandemic. And that's a very broad cohort of them. And also people who were kind of shopping online already shopped more and more. And they had no other choice, I guess, because, a lot of the retail outlets in Ireland, like any other European countries, were closed. So they had no other choice. In terms of the growth itself of the market, so we haven't reached full maturity yet. The Irish market has been one of the fastest growing market in Europe. In the last 3 years, and 2020 hasn't disappointed us. It wasn't any different, except obviously we had this additional COVID-related effect attached to it. So we closed the year in 2020, and I guess like most of us, we were glad to see the end of it because it was a pretty tough year. So our volume were up 40% year on year, and we had phenomenal growth in throughout the year, but specifically during peak, our highest week, we were up 130%. So which was very, very challenging to deal with in terms of volume. So look, again, we have, I mean, like any other carriers in the UK and in Ireland, we put in place some operational steps. Like a contactless delivery we had to implement that very, very quickly. In March, when the first lockdown actually was initiated by the Irish government, we spent in excess of 50 million euro in PPE equipment for our staff on the road, obviously, but also our drivers, people working in our sorting centres and our post offices as well. So that had to be done really, really quickly, and in terms of that has helped us to continue in terms of business continuity to serve our retailers. But also it allows us to absorb the additional volume, in terms of the additional steps we had to put in terms to be able to deal with the additional volume. So specifically in terms of the changes to consumer expectations and preferences. So obviously because of the contactless delivery, electronic POD, like the electronic signature of a parcel, was no longer possible because essentially we couldn't hand over our PDAs to the recipient. So we stopped doing that. Now we're recording the names of the recipient, obviously. But again, it was quite funny because there was potential risk for additional claims and queries, but we haven't seen any increase at all. And you would actually question the relevancy of doing electronic POD, to be honest, for e-commerce traffic, at least anyway. In terms of the other thing as well, which we find a slight change in terms of the consumer behavior, it's a lot less about speed now, but a lot more about certainty. So I think what because of the volume we have experienced, and our colleagues as well on the Irish market, there has been some additional delays in terms of the delivery, and I think in general, except for extreme delays, obviously, but the additional couple of days that people had to wait before getting their hands on their parcels. There was not a lot of complaint about this, but it was more about, okay, that's fine, but when is he going to get it? So we had noticed a much large increase in terms of the hit we get on our tracking webpage. That has gone through the roof, and the number of calls as well going through customer service, where people know they had ordered, they're at home, kind of looking out the window and saying, where is that driver going to arrive? So that's one of the phenomenon another phenomenon we noticed. The other thing as well, which kind of explain what happened, is all our out of home delivery solutions, pretty much the volume collapsed. To be honest, the split between our click and collect versus home delivery changed dramatically last year due to the lockdown, and I think in general also click and collect offered into brick and mortar retailers dropped significantly because of the COVID restrictions. There was we've seen a lot of queuing outside stores because there was limited amount. So that was another phenomenon that we experienced last year. And again, people are at home, so that had an impact as well in terms of in-flight changes. We have seen a dramatic reduction in volume of changes. Essentially, people were at home, so they didn't feel the need to change parcels while in flight. And as a result, the volume going through our parcel lockers has actually as well decreased significantly. So yeah, and the direct impact of that is our first time delivery success is much higher. Obviously, we got about a 3 percentage point, and we have a lot less delivery failures. So that's kind of give you an overview or flavor of some of the change we have experienced.
Yeah, sure. It's certainly thrown up a number of challenges for your organisation and generally the carrier industry to try and react to. Like I think you said, it was 150% up on the previous year or something like that.
130 in 1 week, 130%, and it was a difficult week. Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's unbelievable. Fluctuation, right? It's huge. And so, like looking forward to the rest of this year, do you see much of a change in some of those shifts in preferences that you spoke about?
Yeah, well, look, we expect the volume will continue to grow this year, but at a much more moderate pace. Probably we don't expect a 40% increase year on year again, but more, banking on a 15 to 20%, which is probably more in line with the numbers that we had experienced in 2019 and the previous years. Again, we're now operating from a much higher base because that some of that COVID element will stick. So that's where we have. In terms of the vaccination, we expect vaccines will become more and more available probably later on this year, and we plan to be back to some level of normality during the second half of this year. So again, for us, because our volume of parcels are increasing and unfortunately our volume of mail is decreasing, we really need to accelerate our transformation from, as I said, a traditional mail postal business to a parcel courier business. So we've gone a long way already. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. In the last couple of years, we have invested significantly in our distribution and production capacity. So specifically, we have invested 35 million euro across 2 automated parcel sorters, giving us a combined capacity of in excess of 250,000 parcels per day. So that was very welcome. We had the first machine went live in October 2019. And the second machine was just on time live before the previous this peak, which is gone by. And we were very lucky because we had actually, because of COVID, we had restrictions in terms of building the machine and with the engineers and all that. So we're really happy and really relieved to have it. Nevertheless, it was still pretty tough. Looking at the future, we're looking at also doing some significant investment in our local depot and distribution network in excess of 100 million euro in the next 3 years. The reality of it is, again, out of 116 delivery depots we have, only a handful are future-proofed for handling the parcels volume we expect to get in the next 2 to 3 years. So really a massive infrastructure investment in the next 2 to 3 years. Also, obviously, people are going back to work. So we are looking at growing our out-of-home delivery solutions, which didn't get much use last year, I must say. So we have 50 parcel locker banks installed today. We expect to have another 100 installed by the end of this year, another 50 in 2022. So that will help us in terms of, absorbing a lot of that last mile delivery capacity we will require by rerouting some of those parcels towards those delivery solutions. In terms of PUDO network, our plan is to double the size of the network, which is essentially a combination of our own post offices and also a convenience store. So our post office network stay what it is, I guess, but we will be increasing the number of convenience stores that we sign up as a fully fledged PUDO stores. So at the end of the year, our total PUDO network size will be about 2,400 locations, which probably, as I said, double the size of what we have today. And we really, and again, I know we're going to talk a little bit more about sustainability, but it's really delivering to parcel lockers and PUDO definitely support our agenda of the impact we have on the environment. So it's all good for everybody.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a key area of focus for us as well. Once the lockdowns start to end and we get back to some form of normality, we see kind of out of home delivery capabilities forming a really kind of key part of the delivery landscape, both for retailers and for carriers and ultimately consumers as well. And kind of focusing on the point of sustainability, like you mentioned, the huge amount of effort and investment that's going into scaling your business to be able to handle such a big influx of parcels and a change of operating, which is really critical for your business success and business survival. How do you rank that and prioritize sustainability when you've got so many conflicting priorities going on within your organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it has been on the agenda for a good few years already for us, and it is definitely one of our strategic pillar going forward. It's becoming more and more important from the consumer perspective, and we are getting feedback of that. And we are ourselves conscious of the impact that we have. We have one of the largest diesel fleet, I guess, now in Ireland. So we are very conscious of the big impact we have on the environment. So, and locally in Ireland, we have been at the forefront of CO2 emission reduction program on the island of Ireland. So even though our parcel volume have increased, we have managed to reduce our CO2 emission by 30% since 2009. And the target is to reduce by 50% by 2025 and to be carbon neutral by 2030. So that's the kind of commitment we're ready to make in terms of that commitment. We have in 2019 also, Dublin was the first European capital getting emission-free delivery from a carrier like ourselves. So essentially, all collections deliveries were using electric vehicles. In terms of, just to give you an idea about the size of the fleet, we have as of today 244 electric vehicles, mostly vans, obviously. We were the first carrier to get a full electric truck actually earlier this year, and we're very lucky to get our hands on it. And it's testing at the moment, but so we'll see where we go with this. And we have an additional 722 vehicles to be installed by the end of next year. So that's kind of to give you a flavor of what we do in terms of CO2 emission reduction. Other things we do. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to ask, do you think it's going to remain kind of front and center in the minds of consumers, despite everything else that's going on?
Yeah, no, I think so. Because there has been impact, like the lower level of activities globally. We've seen pictures of suddenly you can see fishes around Venice. Again, like, so people realize that we were forced into a situation where we couldn't travel, we couldn't go to work, we couldn't. There was air traveling was reduced. and people could see, well, actually, it's actually making a difference. So I think if it's one of the silver lining with all the bad stuff around COVID and the pandemic, there has been some really positive stuff, and where people maybe where there was unbelievers or people were questioning some of the assertions were there made out there. Now they can see that they have seen the difference by themselves. So, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in terms of the consumer feedback we have. And as I said, we are really serious and committed about this. So, this is here to stay, definitely.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's good to hear. And then I guess if you look into the crystal ball and look further afield than next year or even the year after, what significant market changes can you see on the horizon, or do you project that are around the corner?
Yeah. So look, the beyond COVID and the pandemic and all that is, as I said, this will stop later on this year. We're looking at cross-border parcels as being a very significant impact on the e-commerce in general, but specifically on our business. And what I'm talking about that is the impact of customs 2020 regulatory changes, as well as the changes in terms of European VAT rule changes as well. So the de minimis rule, for instance, which means that any parcels coming into the European Union with a value less than €22 dozen or £15 is not liable to charge to any VAT. That's changing by the end of July, by the 1st of July this year. So that's a significant change in terms of cross-border parcels. And obviously Brexit, right? I mean, this has been certainly, we moved from peak directly into Brexit, and that has been a significant change for us. And obviously, because the UK is no longer part of the EU, those kind of non-EU cross-border challenges are applicable to the UK as well as other countries. And the impact of that, David, is it's more complex, it's more costly, it takes longer to ship a parcel from Ireland into the UK and vice versa. So that's the reality we're faced in. So that's something we're wrestling. We're spending a lot of time and effort to prepare for it, and there's a lot more preparation later on this year. But that's, for me, the next big thing on the agenda for us in terms of changes. And as a result of that, and also I think as a result of the pandemic, there is more and more emphasis on local communities and local businesses. Local business communities supporting local businesses, and we've seen it specifically around the pandemic, and I think it's going to grow as well this year and the following, where more and more people were looking for local fulfillment, for local delivery, and it's all good news, because you gain in speed, you gain in cost, you gain in convenience. So we've seen already some of our customers who have brick and mortar retailers both in the UK and Ireland, looking at using some of their infrastructure here in Ireland as a way to bypass some of the Brexit constraints we're currently experiencing, but also because the footfall in their store have reduced, it's to be able to use their store as still obviously a walking store where you can buy stuff, but also maybe walled part of it to become a mini fulfillment center there, again for local deliveries. So that we've seen that trend starting, and it's going to grow later on this year. I think one aspect as well of this local fulfillment, it's really opening the door for us and other carriers like ourselves to support food and grocery delivery models as well, because this is something we have been shied away. I mean, all our fleet is ambient fleet, so, and in terms of, a lot of us have a kind of a hub and spoke delivery structure whereby you collect locally, bring it to a center, and then back out. But with this aspect of local fulfillment for local delivery, this is really opening the door for us to look at that as well. And overall, as I said, the zero emissions delivery, the whole impact on the environment is there to stay with us. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A lot of stuff going on potentially coming up this year and beyond. And then I guess one last point, you kind of touched on it a little bit, and we're getting towards the end of our time now, but I did want to, it would be remiss of me not to ask the National Irish Carrier about the B word and Brexit. So it's coming up to about a month since the formal exit of the UK from the European Union.
Yeah.
you touched on a couple of the pain points. Can you share a little bit more insight into what's happening on the ground, and whether you've got any advice to retailers out there that are looking to ship either from the UK into Europe, into Ireland?
So look, So look, we had a slow start. There's no point. It was pretty. We had some teething problems initially, and I think because it was all the way to the wire, we had very, very little opportunities to do an extensive testing. So we didn't stop. We continued. Parcels continued to move to a lesser volume initially. Now we have cranked up, in terms of more in line with season volumes. And I think for us, we've learned a huge amount as well, because obviously we're moving from a circulation of free trade circulation between UK and Ireland specifically. And for us, it's a very important lane because it's 50% of the parcels we deliver come from the UK. So it's a massive element for us to some complexity. And look, it's I think the retailers are learning, we are learning, everybody's learning, but it's all about data. It's definitely all about data and not just data completeness, but also accuracy. And the two most important pieces of data are country of origin and HS tariff code. And these need to be correct because if they're not, it's just not going to work. I'll give you a quick insight on this. Actually, small story before we wrap it up. So we had a retailer in the UK actually was shipping to Ireland a woolen jumper, and so the electronic record which travels with the parcels came to us. We processed it. We passed it on to the Ireland, the Irish Customs Office, I guess, and they came back and they said, no, you can't bring that into the country. And we said, why is this? And because the tariff code that was used made it sound like that jumper was made of cat fur. So you can imagine that being a prohibited item. So we had to go back and we fixed it eventually. But just a small example to tell you how important the accuracy of the data is, and so it's an everyday learning at the moment. It's getting much better, much easier by the minute, and we'll get over it. But again, it makes sure your country of origin and HS tariff code are correct. That's kind of the main message.
Yeah. That, and don't send cat fur jumpers if you can avoid.
Definitely not.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, Gilles, for your time. I think we're wrapping up now. So thanks so much for the insights, and I hope 2021 is a good year for yourself and Anpost, and no doubt we'll speak again soon.
Great. Thanks a lot for having me. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
E-commerce is booming like never before. It's great news. But customers expect fast, flexible delivery worldwide. It's a lot to deliver on. And that's where Metapack comes in. Our Delivery Manager software helps you deliver on your customers' expectations, no matter where in the world they are. Our system integrates with over 400 carriers and 4,900 shipping services to provide the best shipping option based on your customer's location and preferences. New services can easily be added or removed, all via one simple integration. With labels generated in as little as 200 milliseconds, even during the busiest shopping periods, helping you keep up with demand when it matters most, all while increasing efficiency and lowering costs. And most importantly, delivering on your customer promise. Discover how effortless global e-commerce can really be. Metapack. Effortless e-commerce everywhere.